our YouTube page, and then you could see the chat.
So here's the same clip I'm looking at right now. Was this Probert's first career fight? Oh my God, it is unbelievable.
What's the handle? Who sent it? Who posted that?
Handle? What the hell?
Yeah, you should have used the term.
Okay, so look at the top of the video. What does it say? Like, who's the one that posted that?
If I didn't have my glasses.
It says hockey first history.
Hockey first history.
All right, I'll Google that or search it. Bob Probert.
Craig Cox was the tough dude too.
Craig Cox. Okay, we're about to go on, so be ready.
Retweet the thing if you can.
Oh, Jesus.
Retweet.
What are we doing?
We're on?
What are we doing?
Man, I think I look good in the all black. I should wear
and
all
I
black
complain
more.
about us starting, the Dallas Stars starting on time all the time.
Like, we started on time.
We start early. That's what you should do.
Like, are we trying to make us look worse?
If anybody wonders if this is a bit, it's not.
No, we just go. I guess that's the fun of it, right? Let's make the Dlls Dallas Stars pregame show hosts look like bozos. I like Letty's word for that, by the way. Luds, Sam, John, a.k.a. Judas over there. There he is.
Star Trek versus Star Wars going on right now.
How's your ankle today, John?
I had a full day of icing it and watching football and not moving, so it's feeling much better.
And the Patriots won.
That'll help.
They did.
That'll help too.
All right, let's talk about hockey now. Stars at the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's get our pregame show rolling. Yep, it's the DLS Dallas Stars pregame show, and I'm already distracted. Letty's got me watching Bob Probert's first ever NHL fight against Craig Cox, 1985. Luds, the linesman let him go. There's no breaking in when one guy stumbles.
You pulled it up already.
What? Man. You told me to search
Once
for
you gave
it.
him the handle, he searched it.
The handle?
The name of the account. So I found it. There's no defense.
Oh, my God.
They take 100 punches apiece. The linesman let him go. Yeah. Nowadays, I swear, two guys square up for a fight and they break it up before it starts.
Yeah.
This is violence. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the show today. Dallas Stars have lost 3 games of their last 4, which is very uncharacteristic of, thank you, Cam, of the Dallas Stars under Pete DeBoer. They have not been a team that's been in a ditch for a very long time, to use a Ken Hitchcock line. Well, Tyler Seguin addressed it after the loss in Winnipeg on Saturday afternoon.
Our goalie did nothing wrong. I didn't think Oettinger did anything wrong. I think it's unfortunate. We hung him out to dry a bit. We did against Florida and Finland, and we did again tonight. And I think coach probably just looked for a spark, but nothing to do with our goalie. It's just it's a game that has us all look in the mirror and figure out where we're going to go from here and who we want to be. Through the last 4 games, we played elite teams, and we've lost those 3. So glad it's happening now. Good things to learn from, and a lot of time to get a lot better.
All right, Sam, you were desperate to talk about this today. It's a good decision. I agree completely. What are your first thoughts about that quote from Tyler Seguin?
Yeah, the main thing that stood out was what we talked about in the post-game show on Saturday was like it's real that there's some worry or some turmoil with this team. And so I think it was interesting and good of Seguin and the team to acknowledge that this is a point where we can really control, we can really kind of keep bumping it along here and make this drag out into we're not really sure who we are, or we can say right now, look, that was a game and a 3 out of 4 games against teams that we believe will be, or teams are either there or will be where we want to be. Florida won the Stanley Cup, and the Jets are the best team in the NHL right now. So that's the level, right? That's the place we want to be. And we were, quite frankly, mostly embarrassed, mostly outplayed in those matchups. And I think that right now for the Stars, this is a huge chance for them to say, we have a month ahead of us where we're going to play a ton of hockey. There's no more surprise trips. There's no more crazy distractions going on. You're just going to play a lot of hockey, and you're going to play a lot of teams, as we talked about with the schedule, that you should beat. But the key, I think, for this month is, first of all, like we said, have a really good month. The other key for me, Luds, is beat those teams that
They're supposed
want to. No, well, that you want. They're supposed to, but also these type of teams.
Wait, you're saying that some teams
the
don't want to
Winnipegs-
win?
No, I'm just saying the.
Well, this is one they're supposed to tonight.
Yes, this is when they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Some of the other games, though, that they also need to win,
Yep.
the Winnipegs and those type of games. So it's kind of a little bit of both. Let's make sure we win the games we're supposed to, but let's also make sure that we show up and show that we are in that top tier of the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first thing I thought of when I heard that, or I actually read it, was to the point and truthful. I mean, and not all players may have been around that scrum, but they know what Tyler said, and never been in a locker room with Tyler. Don't know if he's that boisterous guy. Is he, relaying that message? But it'll get out there, and now it's out there for everybody to know that we're not happy where we are, and it's up to us in that room to do something about it.
See, Tyler's too extroverted of a personality to not say anything. I'm not saying he says a ton in the room, but there's no way he's super quiet. I think he's again, like you, I've never been in the room with him as far as like with the team, as only during media availability, which is very different. But I imagine that Tyler Seguin's not afraid to speak his mind when he has to.
And I'm thinking after all these years of being a player and being around some of the great players in Boston and here, I've spoke about Bob Gainey in the past about what he was like as a captain, and they're not always blowing smoke, but they know the right time, and we keep on talking about this is game 8, this is game 12, this is game 13. Before you know it, we're going to say this is game 30.
Yeah.
He recognizes that. Jamie recognizes that. I think that was on display with what Jamie did, in last game. And so the message is sent to everybody, whether you're a first-year guy or if you've been here for 3 or 4 years, is we need to get things in order here because there's expectations from the outside, but more importantly, there's expectations from the inside. And we don't like the way the year ended. And we need to start doing things about it because it's going to be tough. Look at where teams like Nashville are. I mean, they're going to have a hard time reeling it in. And Dallas is not in that situation. But let's start putting our game together where we know it should be.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say one thing that's interesting about that with Seguin specifically that he said to us in camp was, we talked about the Joe Pavelski hole. And there's a lot of talk about on the ice what that would do, but a big thing that we talked about a bunch and everyone's talking about is his impact in the room, right? And so we asked Seguin about that and a bunch of the older guys, and how do you feel that? Like it's not something that you can just replace. And they actually said that there's kind of a two-prong approach to it where you do look where you need to fill in, but you also don't want to change what was working with. You don't want Jamie Benn to have to take on now Pavelski's role and Tyler Seguin to shoulder what Ben might have been doing because you just don't want to change things if all of that was working because one guy isn't there. And while that's true, we also need those guys like Seguin. I mean, how many people on this team have a Stanley Cup?
Tyler Seguin.
He needs to be one who.
But he did it as a teenage rookie with Boston in 2011.
Correct. So while
he wasn't considered a core player at the time.
He was
not at all.
A bunch of those games.
But what he has the experience, and the good thing about this team, we're not thinking none of these players have experience. These guys have been to the Western Conference Final now 2 years in a row. But Tyler Seguin has something that none of these other guys have. He can use that and take, even if it's just a little bit of a step towards that leadership.
The other thing with Tyler is, and I'm not sure how many years it is in between that he won it, but I did look, and it was either last year or this year. It reminded me of when I went 13 years in between, and you start to get down the road ways, and you're not sure, because when you win your first cup, you have that taste. It's like those sled dogs, the Huskies, and once they get a bite of an animal, they're not sled dogs anymore because now they want to chase the animals all the time. So you get that taste of blood in your mouth, and then you go for a long time and you get close a couple times, then you don't, and you start to wonder. And I've only got so many years left. And in Tyler's situation, he's had some injuries he's had to fight through and everything else. And so he wants another one of them. And Jamie wants one, so the guys in the room need to understand where those guys are too. And that helps motivate yourselves, knowing that we've got a couple guys here that we really love as teammates and on and off the road, and we don't want them leaving this game without one.
In the last 4 games, as Tyler said, they've lost 3 of them. 1-3-1 in their last 4, which started in the Finland trip. Some extra numbers, though. They've scored 10 goals in 4 games. That's 2.5 goals a game. They've given up 15, which is 3.75. That alone is enough. If you are averaging more goals against than goals for, you're going to have a losing record. They are -5 in the goal differential department. That's an average of -1.25 goals per game against as far as a differential. That's bad, but the special teams really looks bad. 1 power play goal. Believe it or not, the Rope Hintz goal, which ostensibly was a power play goal extended, came a couple seconds afterwards in Winnipeg, so it didn't count as a power play goal. So 1 power play goal for, 5 against. So in the last 4 games, they are -4 on special teams goals. However, they're outshooting their opponents 134 to 104. That's a +30. And so you'd say, well, if you're outshooting your opponent, wouldn't that lead to more scoring chances and more goals? But there's a lack of context when you look at that shots number, Luds. You have an analytics stat of the day that you gave us earlier that gives a little bit more context because, look, the Stars had a ton of scoring chances, ton on the power play, and shots in the 3rd period against Winnipeg. Well, guess what? The game was over. It was 4-0. They were at least they were pushing, right? At least they didn't just pack up and go skate off. But it's not the same as dominating shots against the Jets when it's a 1-1 game.
Well, we talked the other day, and we were talking about Wyatt, and there was a chart that shows high danger chances, and there's high danger, mid-level, and low, and you know, and I look at it from a team standpoint too, and you know, yeah, they've got shots, but there's another stat, and it's called expected rebounds, and it's just how many rebounds you get, and that really has a lot to do with stats and shots and all this other kind of stuff. But you have to be someplace to get a rebound, and you know, Pittsburgh is the best in the league as far as expected rebounds, which tells me they go there and they get their shots, but they don't expect them to go in all the time. So they find a way to gravitate to the front of the net. Dallas this year is 31st as far as rebound shots, which, you know, common sense says you're not getting them because maybe you're not going there. And I kind of complain about that a lot. Now, the good news is that Pittsburgh is the worst in giving them up. So tonight, I'm thinking that this is a good thing. If Dallas gets those pucks to the net, but they follow them up and get in there, get inside that danger area and fight for a couple loose pucks. And I even said, I think they're going to get 2 goals tonight just from rebounds, you know, not necessarily going straight in, but they're going to go in, and you've got a team that you can do that against tonight because they're really good in the offensive end, but at doing that, they're not so good in their own zone as far as covering it up. And there's a reason. They have a couple guys.
Really good in the offensive end, not so good in their own zone.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that sound so familiar?
Yeah.
Is there a specific player on this team that maybe has that tendency?
There is one that I've been loving to hate for a long time. And it's not that I hate Erik Karlsson. I don't like it that, and we have our plating, our 17 and 18-year-old players, and they watch YouTube, and they watch Karlsson. And I'm like, dude, don't ever be Erik Karlsson. And I have nothing
Unless
against...
you're forward.
Yeah, unless you're forward. Yeah, unless you're forward on the other team. But Erik Karlsson, to me, there's an opportunity for Dallas tonight because Sam was looking at it, and Owen's got some clips came walking in. I didn't even know you were looking at that kind of stuff. And he goes, you got to watch Erik Karlsson. I said, don't even start with me with Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson is a one-way defenseman, and he plays one way. And he still plays 24, 25 minutes a night. So he's out there to be exposed tonight. He does not know how to play in his own end. I think he could care less how he plays in his own end, and it looks like it. And so you can take advantage. Now, he's a superstar from the center line in, and he can make things happen offensively.
Pittsburgh benefits when he has the puck on his stick. As soon as he doesn't, he becomes a negative detractor.
He's a liability. Yeah. And I said the other thing. The good thing is, and I just kind of took a swing at this one, he had a goal and assist in their game against Washington the other night. So I looked, well, how did he play in the games after that? Well, he was a minus player in all of them after that, which again, I know we're going to talk about it. So Erik Karlsson's got over 800 points, 867 points or something like that in his career. He's a minus 166. And we were talking about some other guys that Owen just happened to have these stats, and we were not talking about any of this stuff. But and the other thing that gets me is I can't remember the stat thing I'm on. He's called the Swedish Bobby Orr. Well, that's not true. I'm sorry. He's 100 or minus 106, and Bobby Orr is plus. He was what, 500
plus
and
500.
something.
So it was basically the next point. Erik Karlsson will pass Doug Wilson for the 16th highest scoring career NHL regular season defenseman in the history of the league. And of the top 16 right now, not including Erik Karlsson, only Phil Housley is a minus player. He's like minus 55 in his career. Everybody else was plus 100 or way more, except for Brett Burns, who's plus 3. We all know Burns is better going forward than defending as well. Interesting that they played
and
together.
he was a forward for a part of his career too.
Yeah, he was. And yet all these big guys, and the one that really amazes me, and maybe Luddy I shouldn't be amazed at, is the fact that your old D partner and teammate Larry Robinson was the best at plus 722.
That's crazy.
Larry was 100. Larry was, and Bobby was too.
So you had to distract him. We're going to talk lines in a minute, but you couldn't help yourself.
120 something.
I knew he'd get so excited.
Well, yeah, I've been wondering that stuff for a long time.
So the whole reason why I show Sam like the run sheet, what we're going to talk about is so he doesn't get ahead of himself and he just torpedoes it every time. So we're just
exciting. He
can't help himself. He's trying to open all his presents on Christmas Eve.
That's good, but I mean, there's a couple pairings there. One in particular, I've been exactly what I was talking to you guys. Turn that one guy loose a little bit and have somebody have steady Eddie back there. So,
all right, let's do it. Let's talk about the news of the afternoon. Matt Dumba is a healthy scratch today, as we found out. Thanks to Mike Heika for doing the investigative journalism, as he was the only one talking with Pete DeBoer, and he sent that to us. Dumba is a healthy scratch, and so Brendan Smith will come in. And by the way, because we didn't know when his next game was going to be, really couldn't prepare for it, tonight will be Brendan Smith's 700th career NHL game. He hasn't played for a little bit, but he will be in. And let's take a look at the pairings real quick. On the defensive side, we thought it might be this. It's not going to be this. According to the warm-up, it's going to be Esa Lindell on the left with Heiskanen. Harley will play with Lyubushkin, so they'll keep that pairing together. And then Smith and Lundqvist. Your thoughts?
I love that Miro can now, I don't care if Miro's on his left or right. I was talking to you guys earlier. Miro's been really good on his right, and then all of a sudden there's all this talk about the left. So I just think that Miro has to play on his toes. He has to play where he joins. We just got done watching Winnipeg Jets, and we saw Morrissey and guys like this get up involved in the play. I think Miro has to be able to do that to be an effective player. And I'm not saying he's going to be a 20-goal scorer, but he lends so much to the offense. He exits the zone with the puck, and as he goes through the neutral zone, because of his speed and his handling of the puck, he can break down whatever kind of system that they have in the middle of the ice, and he can expose it, and then he distributes it from there. But I think that when he was playing with Thomas, and Thomas is not the best offensive player, he likes to go also. So I think when Miro plays with Thomas, he may want to be back a little bit more and let Harley go, because Thomas Harley's really good once he gets down to the bottom of the circles. Probably better than Miro, making plays, shooting, things like that. So I think one holds the other one back and vice versa. So I think when Esa plays with Miro, Miro can now accomplish what he wants, because Miro goes, Esa knows he's very comfortable playing a 2-on-1 if there is one, a 3-on-1 if he has to. So I think that the only thing that I would be concerned about tonight, because that bottom pair is going to be Smith and Nils, right? Is that what we have now?
That's what they have.
Pittsburgh gets last change.
Yep.
So, and we know the feeling that we've heard from the coaching staff about Nils has got to be better at this and that. So we'll just see how that all plays out.
I'm sure we're going to talk more about Dumba here, but before we get into that, are you surprised that we haven't seen Lindell, Heiskanen more?
Yes.
In general?
Yes.
Not just this year?
Yeah, I am. Because because it again, like I said, it turns Miro loose. Miro's best skating ability, and I used Trevor Daley before, it's his legs. And there used to be a saying, or there still is, but they'll say it about some defensemen that skate, is your legs can get you out of as much trouble as they can get you into. Mm-hmm. And so by not being able to think, but you can skate, it takes you into bad areas of the ice and where you're not supposed to be. Miro's more cognizant of where he is on the ice, and he's more aware of going back to his own end and being a defender. So I think this is basically saying we want to score some more goals. It gives Harley some freedom because of who he's playing with to be able to go like he likes to go. Miro gets a little more freedom to play with a guy like Esa, because we know what Esa, just what I talked about. So now at least you've got a couple guys that will be out there for 20 to 25 minutes a night, and you're going to have one of those guys on the ice almost every other shift.
All right. Speaking of transition, this is a perfect segue, because that's exactly what Mike Sullivan is worried about with facing the Dallas Stars tonight.
I think they're a really good team. You know, they've got good size. They can really skate. They drive a lot of offense with their blue line. I think their transition game, they're one of the better teams in the league as far as generating offense within transition off the rush. They lead the league in odd man rushes for example. They've got some pretty active mobile defensemen. So that's going to be one of our challenges tonight against a pretty balanced team and a dangerous group. This is a real good team that, that I think is going to present challenges a number of different ways. But in particular, I think their ability to create offense off the rush is really good, and the numbers suggest that. We're going to have to make sure we're locked in with our transition defense.
What's your first thought when you hear what Mike Sullivan had to say?
He's right. I mean, he's 100% right. They can get up and they're going to add a little bit more and start scoring some goals. But when players and coaches were talking about the Winnipeg Jets the other night, they're really good on the rush, and man, they're really good in their own zone. They can really defend and all this other kind of stuff, and they've got a great goaltender. I didn't hear him worried about being tough to play against in their zone, which is what you have to mix some of that in. So a good balance would be good. And again, they've got things they've got to get on track, and so I think this is going to help tonight. We'll see. The opponent may help tonight too, to be honest with you.
Let's talk about
the Carlson guy is going to help tonight.
He is going to help. Let's talk about goaltending for a minute, because both teams have issues with goaltending at the moment. Jake Oettinger was pulled for the first time this season on the Saturday afternoon game in Winnipeg. Right after the game, you heard Tyler say, "That's not on our goalie, that was us." Pete DeBoer's post-game comments, he said same thing. Not on Jake, just had to shake something up. Sean, who will be on our show tomorrow, wrote in D Magazine that it was a really bad start. He actually called it RBS and mentioned that as something, whenever your goaltender save percentage is under 85, that's considered a really bad start. And the number of times Otter had that, let's say last year, or even he's had 2 so far this year, the other one was against Florida, compared to like Connor Hellebuck, is noticeable.
Yeah.
Well, if the team is bad in front of him, I think that is some context you have to bring up. So Jake gets back in tonight when I think, Sam, it was not going to be Jake's net tonight. But interestingly enough, we used to always talk about workload, but they also say they do take into account opponent history.
Yep.
Casey DeSmith, who used to play for the Penguins, has never played against the Penguins, ever. So there's no history there except that that's his old team. Jake Oettinger, 4-1 in 5 starts against Pittsburgh, 1.81 goals against, 9.43 save percentage. So maybe my hunch, and we were talking about, we thought Casey would be the starter tonight if Jake played the full game against Winnipeg. Maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe they were going to go with Jake for all 3.
The only reason I believe that was the option, or that Jake, maybe the plan was Casey against Boston, just that when they pulled Jake, that told me that the plan was to have Jake play on Monday, because in games often where the game is out like that, you normally wouldn't put the guy in that's going to play in the next game. It's just usually how those tend to go, unless you really need to do it. I think it's good. Like you said, the history's there. Jake, we've seen Jake be really good against certain teams, and for whatever reason, he's consistently really good against those teams. So don't mess with that history. And I expected him to be good on Saturday. So don't listen to me too much, but I expect him to be good tonight.
No, I don't disagree, but I think the reason they pulled Jake is because Jake wasn't very good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I think they pulled. He didn't look right. There was things laying around, and he looked unsure on a couple of them. And so for whatever reason, he wasn't. Again, we know Jake is a great goaltender, and he's going to be really good. But goaltender, even the best goaltenders of all time, had their bobbles, and it not just one game. It may take him a couple games to get completely back. And Jeff will, he's got a good goalie coach. These guys have a good guy in Jeffrey, and he'll get him back on track.
We'll take a look at the D and the goalie pairings expected for the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. And you'll notice that Tristan Jarry's name is not on the list of starting or even backup goalie. It's because right now, Tristan Jarry's going through it. He has struggled this season. He has a healthy scratch tonight. He actually had been sent down for a 5-game conditioning stint where he was really good with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. But Luds, he is in the second of a 5-year, $26.88 million contract. That's a 5.38 annual value. And 3 more years after this year. They need to figure out pretty quickly if he's just going through it or if he's a mentally broken goalie.
It seems to me when he signed that contract, there was some chatter around that, whether he should be the guy. And I think he's had his moments that he's been a good goaltender. But
They think physical tools are all there.
Yeah.
yeah, so I could care less. To be honest, I don't care.
Well, so put that back up for a second, John. So the starting goalie tonight is going to be Joel Blomqvist. Well, who the heck is Joel Blomqvist? He's a 22-year-old from Finland who was a second-round pick in 2020 for Pittsburgh. Thank you. And last year was only his first year in North America as a full season because he played over in Karpat in the SM Liga in Finland. And last year he played 45 games for Wilkes-Barre. He had a .921 save percentage, 25 wins. He was very good. And he's outplayed Alexander Delkovich, who is the decent money backup they signed to give Tristan Jarry some help. And the number 3 right now is the best of their bunch.
Yeah, all I know is in the last 4 games, he's given up 4 goals.
Yeah.
A game.
He was great.
And 3 of the last
great
4.
against Washington.
Yeah, so
Friday.
he's had one good game.
He looks like you know how with R2 Huru we talked a lot about. We haven't mentioned him in a while, John.
No, he has to go find that.
Yeah, I don't
sounder.
even think it's ready.
We haven't needed it.
That drop's got dust all
That drop
over it.
is back in preseason.
That was a training camp.
You notice he never puts himself on screen when he can't find what you guys are
only
asking
when
for?
he's ready and like,
Bloods, there,
Oh, he has
there
a button for screen.
There's
He
4
does.
things I have to hit, and I have 2
That's why
arms.
you're the pilot over there.
2 long arms.
Ugh.
Well, just the only with Huru, like you're guys that go play in Liga and guys that have played professional hockey, you see them that are a little more mature. One thing I noticed with Blomqvist on Friday against Washington was that he did the little things that young goalies struggle with. Like he had a couple in tight little mini breakaways that the Capitals forward tried to open up the legs on him, and he kept the stick down. Like things like that. I think he's a lot more mature, and they are lucky that he is because they would be in some trouble if they didn't have him right now.
okay, rapid fire forwards. First, here's the Dallas Stars forward group. We are not expecting any changes tonight. That means Oscar Beck is still the healthy scratch. Be interesting to see if they stick with this group. It'll also help if Marchment doesn't take a puck to the face in the first couple of minutes because they really did miss him in the rest of that first period. Now for the Pittsburgh forward group. And yes, the same 2 big names are still there and still leading the way. Think about this, right? Sidney Crosby's 37. Evgeni Malkin's 38. They are still performing at a very high level. This roster, guys, 11 skaters at or above the age of 30. They're not a young team. They don't have a lot of young guys in their group. But this part really stands out to me. Sidney Crosby is 2 goals away from the 600 goal club. That is not a easy feat. 20 players in NHL history have scored 600 or more goals. And only one in the Pittsburgh franchise has more. And that's Mario Lemieux. But the big thing is, check this stat out. If you have this chart, John, 1-1s. These are first overall picks in an NHL draft. These are the goals scored by guys that are 1-1. Sidney Crosby is 3rd on this list. Nice to see Mike Modano up there because he was an unbelievable goal scorer, as we all know. But, Luddy, the one thing I have to point out is that even though Ovechkin has the most goals by a 1-1, Mario's numbers per game, because remember, he missed a bunch of time. He had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, back issues.
I don't want to talk about Mario. He ate me up every time I played against him.
He scored at a rate that if he played the same number of games would have dwarfed even Alex Ovechkin.
Yeah, and I think it was, he was, when people ask me the best player, Mario Lemieux.
Why?
Not Wayne Gretzky? No, it was Mario. His size, his hands. Mario took advantage of his size so well he could hold you off. And if you ever got on his back or you got the side of him, you had to take a penalty against him. There was one goal in particular. I remember Sean Chambers and I were partners, and he got around Bundy, as a matter of fact. Poor Bundy. Mario's got, that's Sean Chambers, my old partner. There's a statue out in front of Mario, and it's about him dancing through a couple guys. And Bundy's one of them.
Oh, no.
So Chambers is one of them. So he's going to be immortalized.
Is that immortal clip where he goes wide and then dances him back? It's one of the most iconic
That's him.
rush chances ever.
Yes. So that's
turned him
Sean.
inside out.
We're gonna have to call Bundy now and see if we can get him on the show.
Tell him 1,000 apologies, but that's one of my favorite forward moves in NHL history.
So the same thing when Mario got behind me, got behind my partner. It wasn't Bundy at that time. I don't remember what it was. It could have been Zuby. But anyway, no. Anyway, he got behind one of us. Then I was behind him going to the net, and I thought, the hell with it. I'm just taking a penalty. I'm not going to let him score. I jumped on his back. He carried me into the net and deked around a goaltender.
And scored.
And scored.
With you
I was
hanging on
on
him.
my skates were off the ice. I was on, and I was trying to tug him down, and he just basically said no. So yeah, he's by far for me. And I even said that one time, and I just said, for Wayne, he was always the passer and he had the vision and stuff like that. But Mario, is he the only guy that scored every possible way, all 5 different ways? I think Mario's in one game.
Think so.
In one game, I think he's the only one. But yeah, he for me, could do it all the time.
I was just going to say for the Pittsburgh forwards, when you watch the Penguins, it's very obvious that they are the Crosby, Malkin, rust a little bit. Bunting got off the schneid, but they are top heavy, and it shows in the games. Almost all of their chances and scoring chances come from there. But I will say one thing: Drew O'Connor right there on the top line, Chatham, New Jersey native, my hometown, my home high school. So.
Well, I hate to trash your high school or New Jersey.
Is he scratched?
No, he's in the lineup, but he is leading the NHL in the battle for the green jersey. For anyone that doesn't know the joke, that's sort of Masters humor. He is minus 14 already this season. That means that he is on the ice.
He's tracking for about a minus 45 or something like that.
He's playing with
60?
Crosby, and he's minus 14.
Minus 14.
So he's not on the power play,
I don't think so.
I would guess.
We'll have to see tonight. But there you go, guys. That's a pregame show. Lots of stats, lots of numbers. We will be here as soon as the
That's
game
all
ends.
Useless information, by the way.
Post-game show. Let's see if any of this translates tonight's game. Stars at Penguins. Enjoy watching. Thanks for joining us.
We all silly like the mayor.